Which word of the day? Today's word is Sisu, noun. In Raya and the Last Dragon, Sisu is the last dragon of Kumandra. Legends say she is a divine water being of unspeakable beauty and unstoppable magic. And in Finnish culture, Sisu is the idea of showing extraordinary determination, courage, and resoluteness in the face of extreme adversity. A mindset which enables individuals to see beyond their present limitations and into what might be, taking action against the odds and reaching beyond observed capacities. Sisu is not momentary courage, but the ability to sustain that courage, a concept that directly mirrors the character Sisu's brave and optimistic personality in the movie.
You haven't even read that?
Wait, what are you doing with the book?
So he has the confidence to finish the story.
Hear now the words of the witches.
This is Kevin, and welcome to Words of the Witches, the Charmed podcast that will guide you through the lesser-known published material in the Charmed universe and decide how it fits into the grand narrative of the TV series. Welcome, spell worders. This is Words of the Witches, book 15. Very cool stuff. We have a very amazing episode today. But before that, I want to remind you about the Ultimate Power Challenge, where I'm asking if you can find all the times a main character was arrested and jailed. So if you still want to submit, email wordsofwitchespod@gmail.com or send me a direct message on Instagram. Great, that will be revealed on the next episode, Shadow of the Sphinx. This episode is Dark Vengeance. You are in for a treat. Here we go. Oh, Dark Vengeance, and then my guest is...
Kat Sicard. It was fine. That's my author name, so...
Kat Sicard. Okay. And so you're an author. Cool. Talk about that a little bit. We'll just jump right into it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm a fantasy author, and of course, Charmed is a big inspiration because I love me some witches. And but my first trilogy is not about Charmed. It's about... or none of it is really, but it's about werewolves because I had to write about something I didn't care about as much to really like dive in and get into it. But yeah, it's done well. It's Moon Shadow by Kat Sicard, and the trilogy is the Mount Henley trilogy. Right now I'm writing the Finder Witch series. And I recently did a best-selling anthology with a group of awesome authors through Diverse Books with Magic, and the title is Girls of Might and Magic, and it's been really fun.
That is so cool. I did not know that about you, so that is awesome. So this is perfect. You know, we're talking about novels. You're like the pro over here.
Sort of, but I love it. I've been reading forever, and I've been writing forever, and I'm a huge Charmed fan, so I'm so super stoked to be here. So.
Yeah, and how did you discover Charmed? Like, what was the process of that?
Okay, so this will date me just a tad, but I actually came to Charmed a little late because when Charmed aired, I was in college, so I was super busy, and then I had a couple kids, and then I found Charmed when it was like almost the last series, I believe, that like season 8, and it was like found it on the WB, watched a few episodes, and was like, oh my god, this is my favorite show ever. But I didn't want to watch the final season without the lead up because I'd done that before and I just didn't want to spoil like all the juiciness. So I tried to catch a couple of the older shows that was on syndication earlier in the day. But I also had like 2 little kids and I was like, I want to watch this with my kids someday, but they're too little to like watch it now. So I kind of was like looking for it at the library, looking for it online. But then when my youngest daughter was a little bit older and it came out on Netflix and we were like, oh my God, it's here. And we started watching the first episode and it was just magic in the making. We loved every bit. And then I knew that Shannon Doherty had left the show at some point. So every time Peru was in peril, every time she almost died or did die, I was like, this is it. Oh my God, when she really died. So it made it so much more exciting because you always know the main character is going to live. But for me, I was like, I knew the main character was going to die. And so it made it super fun because I was always like kind of on the edge of my seat. But then I didn't want to spoil it for my daughter. But she was like, yeah, no, you were always really invested in when Prue was going to die. So,
and
but it was great. And I loved it.
And that's so crazy because, yeah, people who watch it now kind of already know that going into it. And, you know, I was watching it brand new, you know, week by week as it aired.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm
You're
just
so
like...
lucky.
Yeah, I was really young. I was 10 when it started, and I all the way up until 18. I watched it every year, and so it was like really right in those formative years for me. Uh,
Yeah. Well, and that's why I was like, I knew my kids had to see it because they gave so many good messages and such good lessons, especially for young women and young queer folk like us, and
yeah,
I really appreciated that. My husband, who like told me that Shannon Doherty left the show, like, because he knows random trivia like that. And so I was like, oh my God, it just blew my mind. But yeah, I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
yes. So you mentioned us queer folk. So how do you identify?
Oh yeah. Well, so I'm she, they. I am a femme-leaning queer. And yeah, that's about it, I guess. But I love it. I am who I am. Maybe pan I guess is what I would say if somebody were to like dig into it and
Okay,
ask me questions.
yeah. Because I first discovered you on the Facebook Charmed groups, and I just really enjoyed what you had to say. I thought it was very profound and very inclusive, and I'm just like, I need her on my podcast.
Yay! Thanks. That's how I try to write too, because we're out in the world and we should be written into media.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And you're in Madison, Wisconsin, so not very far from me at all here in Milwaukee. So
That was so exciting. I had no idea you were so close until we were like gonna do this. I was like, oh my God, we're gonna run into each other someday. Maybe at Trixie's bar.
Yes, yeah, this is it. Yes.
Trixie Mattel. For sure.
I was just in Madison a few weeks ago, actually. I was at Five.
Oh, fun.
I was there. I saw a story on your Facebook that someone stole your Black Lives Matter flag.
Oh, yeah. I actually had a sign defaced, and then I had and spit upon. I realized when I was painting it later. Yeah, it's a shame. We do kind of live in a little bubble here, but it's like super important that we recognize that Black Lives Matter, and we wouldn't have to be shouting it if it weren't for the the things that we go through as a society and the experience that our Black and brown brothers and sisters have to experience, and it sucks. And racism's a white problem that white people have to help solve.
Exactly. And the fact that that happened just proves that what we're fighting for matters even more.
Yeah. So my husband bought an even bigger sign or an even bigger flag that we hung. It's huge, and I painted my sign with big Black Lives Matter, and we bought a doorbell camera,
Oh, yeah.
So that was the outcome.
Yeah. Because when I was in Vegas earlier this year, visiting James Mansfield,
nice.
The pride flag was stolen from our house and thrown into a sewer.
Oh my God, that's awful.
So
I'm so sorry. It sucks. It feels really aggressive. You're like scared about it.
Right. You're like, wow, this is the neighborhood I live in. Okay.
Yeah. And my sign was actually that kindness sign about like, Black Lives Matter.
Sure, all the things.
Women's rights are human rights, love is love. So it was kind of like, okay, you're just hating on everything over here.
I guess so.
Whoever you are.
Right.
Yeah. My husband is a person of color, and so he was kind of like, I don't know at first, like, should we put up a sign? I don't want to be a target, which made me really identify with my white privilege to feel like I had this totally different experience of thinking it's my duty to put this sign up so that my neighbors feel safe, in our neighborhood. And then it was really important for me to like have that awareness of his perspective of like, oh, is this making us a target? And then it sucks to be proven right in a way when we did get targeted, but it emboldened him to be like, yeah, no, we're just gonna keep living our lives and showing that we're here. So yeah, it is what it is, but hopefully we can change what it is to make it something better.
Yes. Well, thank you for, the positivity. We're starting off on a good note, great. Should we dive into the book then?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited.
Me too. This is going to be good. So this book is called The Dark Vengeance. It's the 15th book, and we have some season 4 individual promo pictures put together again, like a lot of these books have been doing. And then it has the tagline, "An ancient clan wields its own power of 3. Oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
This really reminded me of the Mitzi, Margot, and Mabel.
Oh my gosh.
Naughty blonde.
We will get into,
three blondes.
We will get into it. This whole book, I'm like, yes. Very much that.
You're like, totally.
So I can't wait to talk about it. Yes.
Okay.
The background has like this kind of like skull looking thing. It's kind of facing downward. It's got little yellow eyes. You didn't notice that, did you? Yeah.
I didn't notice that at first.
Yeah, it's got like this skull, like kind of like mystical
and you can
looking
kind of
skull.
see their shadow.
Yeah.
Like the shadow of the three girls. Cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or the three villains.
Oh my god,
That's the
Whoa,
point.
I did not even see that. See, well, look at that. Yeah, shadow of the three. There's a man in the middle and the two. Oh,
Dun, dun, dun.
Whoa, blow my mind.
Charlie's Angels style.
Yeah, discovering new things about this cover. That is awesome. I really appreciate this cover even more now. I love it. Wow.
Yeah, I love it more now too. The skull really makes it.
Yeah, very cool. This is a cool cover. And the back. If you look behind the words in the back, there's still like a little mini skull in there as well. Oh, and the little mini,
yeah, and I think that might be the bad people too.
Little mini shadows and little mini. Oh, that is beautiful. So the back of the book says, "And should the trinity of evil be awakened, the champions of virtue must defend the light of ages past or be forsaken, as the warriors of darkness were before them." It's a stretch with rhyme, but it's a nice little story of like a little warning.
Well, we kind of know what happens before they do.
Yeah, exactly. The charmed ones are feeling out of sorts. Phoebe misses Cole, who's gone away for a week of solitary reflection. Piper is overwhelmed with the responsibilities of overseeing her household, charmed affairs, and P3, her nightclub. Paige is still adjusting to her role as a savior of innocence and is increasingly sensitive to all levels of human pain. Soon, though, Piper is distracted by an energetic musician auditioning to play at the club. Phoebe is making a new friend in her web design class, and Paige is meeting new people at the homeless shelter where she volunteers. But it isn't long before the girls discover that a sinister force is working against them. Phoebe's short
dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Phoebe's short-term memory is shot. Piper can't control her emotions, and Paige feels thoroughly exhausted. At the same time, their powers are diminished. Could their new acquaintances be connected to the threat? It's a real-life family feud, one that could have deadly results. Oh. And the author of this book is Diana G. Gallagher. She wrote Beware What You Wish and Spirit of the Wolf previously to this. And then it was published November 1st, 2002 and reprinted January 6th, 2003. I
think I have the reprint version.
I have the original of all these. That's because when these were coming out, I had them pre-ordered at Barnes & Noble.
Oh, I love that.
I found the first book, Kiss of Darkness. That was the first book I saw. And ever since then, I was getting them as they came out. Yeah.
You're so lucky. Because I was like 18 when it came out, so I had like no superfluous income. So it wasn't until like I was done with the show that I was like, oh my God, there's books. And then I went on a deep dive and found them all and bought them secretly.
I was real little. I was like in 7th grade, but I was like, I would like save my money from mowing my grandma's lawn, and like I'm going to save this for my Charmed book, and like so I was really stingy with it, but I made it work. Yeah.
Adored.
So the novel is set between season 4, episode 13, Charmed and Dangerous, and episode 15, Merry-Go-Round, as Phoebe is engaged but has not been married, and it says that the source was vanquished. Yeah, so it has to be after Charmed and Dangerous. They also mention the Hollow in this. However, Cole is not the source in this, so either they decided not to have that happen, or
that's what I was wondering. Like Cole is just kind of gone in this book, so he could be off doing nefarious things, but they made it seem like he really was, human. Yeah, but he just probably came home all stinking of brimstone instead of stinking of fish.
Right, so they don't make it clear what he was really doing. The book assumes he's human, I guess, but which I guess makes sense for like the Three Faces Phoebe. He's kind of playing both sides there, if that's the one after Charmed and Dangerous. But yeah, should we get started with the summary?
Sure. Okay. I'll do chapter 1. We've got opening scene. Phoebe watches Cole pack for his trip of reflection. Cole wishes Phoebe luck on her new web design class and drives off. The sisters and Leo have breakfast in the kitchen. I love the little scenes where they're just like hanging out. I'm so glad that the books always include those like, we're just chilling as a family. It's classic. Let's see. Piper brushes off plans with Leo because she is overwhelmed with errands. They all agree to help out and ease her stress. However, Paige can't help because she's volunteered again at a food shelter. Paige is always stretching herself too thin.
Yep. She's like, I volunteered last week, but I told him I'd do it again this week. Yeah.
Even though I don't want to.
Yeah. I think it's funny that at this point Phoebe graduated college, but she's still taking classes. Oh, it's all about the World Wide Web these days, so I need to get on something better.
Maybe I should be a programmer. I'm sure that's super easy to pick up really quick.
Exactly.
In like a 3-credit community college class. No problem.
Right.
And then I love how they're all like, yeah, get on that, Phoebe. I need help with my wardrobe and I can't take the demon damage, which I love, was also classic. But yeah, they're just all like, yeah, Phoebe's going to be this computer whiz overnight.
Pepper is at P3 and she is waiting on a delivery for new stock for her club, all the cups and stuff. And Leo is supposed to help, but he's not there yet. She's like, "Where are you?" She's calling him on the phone, "Get over here." And Leo's like, "No, I can't because Paige clogs the toilet. That's the matter."
I know, they just blame Paige, like, "Oh, it's all your fault."
Piper is stressed by all the little tasks that she has to be done. There's still so much you have to do. And as she's there with a vengeance, this is a new band that's auditioning to play at the club. They're there and they're going to play for her. And,
they're very pushy.
Yes.
We're going to play for you whether you like it or not.
Yeah, like, they're here. We're going to do our sound check. We're going to do it. And the band was made up of 3 men and 1 woman, Karen Ashley, which I love. When I saw that name, I immediately thought of Power Rangers because the actress Karen Ashley plays Aisha,
That's why
the
it sounds
second
so
Yellow
familiar.
Ranger. Yeah. I met her a few times at cons. I'm like, it's not that Karen Ashley.
Cool.
Yeah. So Karen had Piper hand her flute. She's like, "I need this flute to play for you.
Yeah,
can you grab it for me?"
What a diva.
I know. Oh. And it seems to be like this very prized possession, but she's like making somebody else grab it. And like, that's kind of unusual.
And Piper's like, "You better have your own roadies come showtime."
Yeah, she's like, "This is not going to be a common occurrence."
No.
And they begin to play. And Piper at first feels some sadness, which I think it was nice because they mentioned how she had feelings of Peru and everything. I'm like, "Aw."
Oh, yeah. We always need to remember Peru.
Yeah. She's like, "Oh, this is making me feel sad. They're definitely not going to be booked."
Yeah. These guys are great, but they're not for us.
Right. But then she appreciates the Irish jig, too. She's like, "Oh, yeah, this music's definitely not for us." She's like, "Now we're doing an Irish jig."
Like, I could see that at any bar in Madison, but not so much at P3. But
right.
I love me some Irish jig,
Oh yeah, she was enjoying it too. She's like bopping to the beat and everything. She's like, "This is cool too," but yeah, not the jam for P3 either.
She's like, "If I do book them, they better not play too many slow songs."
Right, exactly. But then they go into this whole rock sound. So they're mixing the Irish elements with this rock sound. And she's like, "All right, now this is what I'm talking about."
We get a little Coyote Piper action. She hops up on the bar. She starts doing a dance. Just kidding, that didn't happen.
That would be amazing. But they are hired immediately. She's like, "Yes, this is what I'm looking for." I forgot to mention the dizziness when she handed the flute to Karen.
Oh,
she got a little dizzy because that's important to note.
Yeah, they definitely were not subtle in this book about what was like happening. You're like, "Oh, she touches the flute, she gets dizzy. I think things are going off the rails." And Piper's not known to be like emotionally erratic. She's known to be pretty level-headed. So
right. Leo arrived to see Piper with much more pep in her step now, because now she's much more happier than she was earlier. She's like, "Oh my gosh, Leo, this is great!" She's like laughing at everything, and she's having a good.
Just beat me with a shillelagh. Yes.
And then it cuts to Paige, and she greets Doug Wilson, which is the supervisor of the shelter, and who she's met, she's worked with before since she's been volunteering at this place. But she meets the new volunteers that are coming for the first time that night. So she's like, "Okay, you're here. I'm going to train you on what we do. Here's the routine." And
is this during Paige's working at the social worker place still?
Yep, she's still there.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, gotcha.
One of the new volunteers was Kevin Graves. What a great name, Kevin.
Graves. Oh yeah, I was like, "Oh, I gotta make sure I don't diss on Kevin too much because Kevin will be sad."
Right. But this Kevin, I don't know.
This Kevin was super jerky. Like, I did not like him right off the bat. I was like, no.
The name Kevin actually means kind, gentle, and handsome, so he is not fulfilling these traits. Well, maybe the handsome part.
Yeah, handsome for sure.
Here he is, a handsome surfer type I have written down.
They're all blonde. They're the 3 blondes.
The three blondes. We didn't meet the third one yet, but yeah, there's three blondes in here.
Are you a blonde, Kevin, or are you a redhead?
Neither. Well,
Neither. You're a brunette.
I am
Sorry,
a brunette.
am I busting you out?
No, I mean, there's pictures of me all over the internet. It's not a big surprise.
I just don't remember. I see your picture all the time. I know your face, but
yeah, I have brown hair, but I have a red beard.
oh, okay. See, that's why. That's why I was like, why am I getting red vibes? Yeah, I'm a natural blonde. Oh, okay. You get gingerfied.
Yeah. But you're blonde. Yeah. Cool.
I'm a natural blonde. I tried to do a little bit of the washout, like coppery red for this summer. And then I was like, oh my God, it's so dark. And my daughter's like, I think it's hilarious. You don't think you're still blonde right now.
That's funny.
Yeah. But yeah. So anyway, not to diss on the blondes, but yeah, these, Mitzi, Margot, Mabel wannabes are all in here. Oh, and he was injured on a construction job. Paige's favorite, somebody who's wounded and
yeah, especially a handsome man type. She's like, oh, he's injured. He must be sensitive. He must have all the kinds of great stories to tell me. I'm immediately smitten.
Which is so crazy coming off of the last book she was in, where she was like abducted by the random creepo who was interested in her, and so you'd think she'd be a little more cautious, like round two.
Right.
Maybe she thinks he was vetted a little bit because he was at the homeless shelter.
Maybe. She's like, okay, this is a good one.
Yeah, I always try to justify the writing or the actions.
Yeah. But Kevin tells Paige that he heard she was an angel from this older man named Stanley Addison, who he's a homeless guy who she's trying to get into a nice retirement community because he has like, he had like a job. Yeah, some dementia.
Yeah. So. And then that was also weird that he calls her an angel right away, like a little too on the nose, Kevin.
I'm no angel. I'm a witch. That was used in the season 1 DVD marketing, I remember. After the night was over, so they fed all the people that came through.
They were kind of jerky about like homeless people. They were a little insensitive at times.
Yeah, they were.
People in general in this book. I was like, come on now. And I mean, I guess they had to slowly ease us into Kevin is evil. No offense, Kev. But but yeah, I was like, way to white savior complex the place a little bit. But anyway.
Really, it was like that. They finished the giving her the food and everything, and Kevin showed Paige his cane.
I bet he did. Like, come on, Paige, I got a long stick for you to check out.
It's a long cane. It's not at all limp in here. All right.
Really special. Want to rub it?
Right. Well, she admired the artistry. She's like, it's very aesthetically pleasing.
Which was also super obvious right away that they both, the cane and the flute, not only being very phallic in nature, but having the artistic scroll work or the Celtic knots on it or whatever.
Yeah, they're tying it together real quick.
They want us to feel smart while we're reading it. I like it when they give us a little more of a mystery, but that's okay. We had to get to the end.
And Paige got a static shock when she touched it.
Love at first sight. Oh my God.
And Kevin, noticing that Paige seemed lightheaded, offers to give her a ride home. She's like, but what about my car? And but
what about my lime green VW Bug?
Yes. He was like, what about your car? And she's like, my brother-in-law will get in the morning. That's fine.
Yeah. So I'll just ride with you. I thought that was weird too. She was like, I'm just ditching my car here.
Yeah, it's weird that they have a plan for everything. But sure. So now we go to Phoebe in her web design class, and she does not understand a thing. She's like, this is all kinds of computer mumbo jumbo. I don't know HTML. I don't know what this is. But she meets a classmate, Kate.
Yeah.
So we got Kevin and Kate. Isn't that funny?
That is so funny. We were meant to read this one.
Mm-hmm. And she's a blonde, another blonde. It's the power of three blondes is officially introduced. And she goes with her to get some coffee after class. And at the hip coffee shop, Phoebe notices Kate's bracelet. I wonder if this is going to be anything.
Big surprise! There's some Celtic scroll work.
On this bracelet, Kate tells Phoebe that it was her great grandmother's, and that there's writing etched on the inside, but she can never make it out. So she hands it to Phoebe. She's like, "Could you make it out for me?"
Yeah, that's so weird. I've had this for like my whole life, but here, can you investigate? Can you read this better than I can? Like shoved it in her face.
Right. Phoebe touches it. She immediately gets a vision, and she sees Kate in like fur, leather, and armor. Well, this is kinky. But...
Looking pretty hot. She sees Kate. She's like, "Oh, close away." Phoebe's gonna play.
She sees this girl in fur, leather, and armor as lightning strikes a tree down, and Phoebe believes it's from Kate's past and not her future. She's like, "This, I just got a feeling it's from the past."
Something about the wardrobe really
very
tiny
old
bit.
school. And then the waitress brings them the coffee order, and that's the end of that chapter. So,
and she decides not to mention it or care about it. All right, so chapter 3, Paige is at her day job, calls Doug to see if Stanley has slept at the shelter. Oh yeah, because she's checking up on her old man to make sure he made it back to the shelter, because he hadn't gotten there when she left, and she was worried about him when Kevin lured her away. Though the card ride home was uneventful, Paige wonders if there truly is mutual attraction with Kevin. I forgot this part. The coworker snagged on Paige's cactus, and Paige tries to orb the plant to safely, but it fails. And she's like, "What's up with my orbing?" And then she breaks her like favorite coffee mug, and she's all sad, and the coworker feels like a jerk. But then she doesn't want to get in trouble because the guy's like, "Your desk is messy." Anyway, once we remember, her desk was full of crap.
It was full of stuff. It's not the tchotchke. She's like, "I want all the toys."
Yes, which I get it. I just recently had to go back to the office, and I certainly brought a few superheroes with me.
Oh, lovely.
All right, so Piper and Phoebe are talking in the kitchen, and Phoebe isn't sure yet if the class is worth it. She's like, day 1, I can't remember a damn thing. Piper's like, "Cracking that whip, you better make us some money."
Yeah, exactly.
Phoebe just like worked at the club a little bit,
Not
a lot, but yeah, they need their space. Oh yes, and then Piper, she turns on the garbage disposal after peeling potatoes, and a geyser of water erupted. Oh man!
So we got potato skins and water goo everywhere.
Yeah, she's like covered in like starch and gunk. Yeah, that's fun. Phoebe clutches her laptop for dear life because she's got to save the important things.
Mm-hmm.
Piper's outfit's already ruined.
Yeah.
Oh, but Piper, who in unusually good spirits for Piper, she laughs it off and just calls for Leo.
Like, this is really strange.
So then Leo finds a gremlin scale. So I'm guessing gremlins are scaly. And I always pictured gremlins furry, but I think that's just, again, dating me a little bit. But you also don't get them wet. But anyway.
You're thinking of the Mogwai, though. Mogwais are different from gremlins.
Right. Okay. Thank you for keeping me on track.
Yes.
So Leo warns them that they'll have to trap him and release him into the underworld because they're like an endangered species or something. They can't just blow him up, so they gotta like send him back to be a pest. They're
like underworld rats, only uglier, nastier, and smarter. A lot of them are immune to magic, but they all shed scales. And then when a gremlin dies, others sense it and move in to fill the vacated niche. The only way to break the cycle is to catch the first squatter. When a gremlin is trapped or forced out, it releases a warning pheromone. We can't detect it, but the scent repulses other gremlins and breaks the species' territorial bond. Crazy.
You would think that the Halliwell Manor had its share of gremlins or two in the past.
Yes. What's funny is, a gremlin appeared in the same episode, Power of Three Blondes. I'm like, this is crazy.
It did?
Yes, that's when the first gremlin, because the gremlin was at Paige's temp job at like the fruit packing place, and that's the same episode.
Oh, that's right, those little gremlins. And then she releases them into the junkyard.
Yes,
the gremlin. Go on, little dude.
At the end of the book, I'll talk about the lore on the show and the lore in general. Cool. But it's not what they appeared on the show is nothing like how they are here.
Yeah, because that's totally different. This one seems fatter and annoying and gross.
I kind of pictured like what an actual gremlin looked like in the movie. Gremlins, like the green, like kind of creepy with teeth and like scaly and like the ears. And like a little bit like Stitch. I feel like the personality of this gremlin is very much like Stitch.
Totally. I just pictured this voracious appetite, just like kind of sloth like. It kind of reminded me of the episode where they have the whatever's going on and they have to call the witch doctor to come and cleanse the house of the energies that built up.
Yes.
I love that
Call.
episode.
Season 5, episode 13. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Way to pull that out. I love it.
I know every episode by heart. I don't know why. It's just in there.
Well, that's okay. Everyone has their skills, and that's yours to share. Which those of us who love the show and can never remember which episode really appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you. So the gremlin ran out of the cabinet, and Phoebe levitated, but it was more of a weak hover. Something's on the fritz here. Let's see. The gremlin gnawed at her boot, like nibbles at her before running away. Are you edible? Gross. Yeah. I'm out of here. Yep. Phoebe is concerned at the effectiveness of her powers. And then Leo explains that the gremlin is a low threat, but that they're annoying and destructive and expensive.
Yeah, that translates to expensive, because Piper's like, oh, so that means expensive.
Yeah, that's going to cost us some doubloons. Mm-hmm. So the gremlin escapes back into the sink pipe, and then Phoebe has a lapse in memory where she put her laptop, and Piper and Leo remind her where it is, which happens to the best of us. So they're not suspicious yet. Piper takes a bag of old clothes to the attic and finds Paige. Paige comes upon another instance where Paige is being a little bit stepping on some toes. She's digging out. She's looking for an old ceramic bowl of grams where she used to keep pins. A new home for her cactus. And it's like, you just broke the last home for your cactus, and now you want to bring this precious heirloom.
I know.
So Piper's a little annoyed.
It was strange because, like, I appreciated the sentiment, and Piper was annoyed, but she's also like, "Oh, let her have it. Makes her feel closer to us and stuff."
Yeah,
but I'm like, you just broke the last one. I don't know if I can trust her with this.
And then she stands up, and the old ceramic bowl of grams starts rolling off her lap, and they both have to use their powers to save it again. It's like, this is a sign. Leave the bowl where it is.
Right.
So Phoebe arrives in the attic, eyeing the Book of Shadows, and then notices the bowl, Piper, Paige using their powers at the same time, and then the bowl freezes for a split second, but begins to roll again. And eventually, with like a delayed reaction, orbs to Paige. Mm-hmm. And is still intact at this point. Phoebe forgets why she came into the attic. So at this point, we're realizing as the reader that Piper's really super giggly. Paige is starting to be tired and also not have her powers are kind of on the fritz. And Phoebe's getting forgetful, and all their powers are not working quite right, or a little bit delayed, or are weakened. And none of them have already put it together. They had these weirdos like thrust random crap in their faces.
No, but they think it's the gremlin.
Oh yeah, which they were like, "Wow, I didn't realize gremlins could be so destructive."
Which I suppose that's fair, because that's the issue that's right in their face. That's not less insidious. So that makes sense.
And it seems like it just happened because they're just noticing the delay. Because it's the first time they've used their powers. So, and Phoebe already forgot she had a premonition. Probably.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So with everyone else indisposed, Piper casts a spell to help weed it out. So at this point, they're hunting the gremlin. Leo finds it in the pipes, and it screeches, but it gets away again. Pesky gremlins. They're so hard to catch. Let's see. Everyone isn't truly certain why powers are dwindled, but they agree to not use them again until they figure it out. Leo goes to the elders.
I don't know. This gremlin was so cute to me.
I just pictured like this like chunky little baby man that was like, I'm so hungry, and I'm like slithering through the pipes. Like, I totally forgot there were actual gremlins on the show, and I did not picture the little dudes at all.
Chapter 4, Paige is at work, and she finishes copying paperwork for Stanley's application to the home. So she's like, I'm going to get him in there. I just get his application in and ready to go. And then Kevin arrives to her job to visit her.
Super sketchy. Like, where did this guy get her address? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's...
Kevin just... they're the charmed ones. If some rando's just showing up, maybe don't think it's your sex appeal and be a little suspicious.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they're already smitten. Mm-hmm. And at this point, he's already zapped her a little bit and probably has a little magical hold or something.
True.
I always try to justify it because I'll complain and then I'll validate.
Okay, well, that's good. It's the writer brain. I like it.
Totally.
But Kevin tells Paige he thinks she left her sunglasses in his car, but then admits that they're actually his. And he wanted an excuse to see her.
What a moron. Like, if I wasn't already not interested in this guy, that would do it. I'd be like,
I know.
You're like lying to me, and I'm supposed to think this is cute, but really, like, come on.
Yeah. It's like, are these your sunglasses? She's like, no.
Did you? It was night when we hung out. Did you
Right.
see my sunglasses?
Yeah, it was late. It's like, yeah, sorry, these are mine. I just wanted to pretend to. I'm like, oh my God, get out of here.
Yeah, I don't think Paige was buying it. I think she raised an eyebrow at him, and he was like fumbling for an excuse. Like,
Yep.
yeah, she's not that dumb.
Yeah. But Kevin invites her to dinner, and Paige agrees to think about it. So.
Oh yeah, the next line.
Yeah. So this is when Kevin is like rubbing Paige's leg with the foot of his cane.
Yeah, he is.
Like,
He had to really get down there for that.
it was so awkward. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was doing that. It's an old habit or whatever."
Stroking things with my cane is just what I do.
Oh, such a weirdo.
Paige is not at all suspicious.
No, she's not.
This is also maybe like post-COVID, we're all a little suspicious when anyone wants to touch us. We're like,
That's
yeah,
true.
6 feet, please.
But yeah, after that, he leaves, and Paige tries to make it through the rest of the day without falling asleep. She's like, I am so tired. What is happening? Yeah. Those long days. I mean, some days you're not in the mood.
Some days
You're not
you
ready.
just need a couch and a nap.
We're back at P3, and with a vengeance, the band is practicing at P3 again while Piper is there. And because Piper's behind the bar, Karen reaches over the bar for a napkin. She's like, can I have this? I need a napkin, please. Thank you. And, she couldn't ask Piper to hand her a napkin. She has to go, I'll go here.
Yeah, she's such a Karen.
Yeah, she really is, especially later on in the book. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
But as she reaches for the napkin, her flute touches Piper on the cheek. Okay.
So weird.
So weird. And I'm
sorry. Possession.
I didn't need to touch it with my flute. I'm sorry.
At least she's not stroking her foot with it. So, I mean.
That's true. At least it's a little bit better. And now the band leaves to go get some food, and Piper
didn't want to give him advice at first. She was like, screw these guys. They're rude. They're inconsiderate. I'm not going to tell them where to go and save a book. And then she gets touched by the flute, and she's like, oh, I should tell him where the good tacos are, or something like that.
Right, that's true.
It was super weird.
And when they leave, Piper falls to the floor, and she starts crying. She's like in a flood of tears. So
I felt so sad in that moment. Whenever Piper's crying, I'm like, oh no. I mean, Holly Marie Combs is such a great actress that whenever she's crying, I'm like crying too. So I just could picture it,
So true. I mean, every time she cries, you feel it. Phoebe is now back in class, her web class, and she is not impressing the teacher. The teacher is like, did you even read this lesson? She's like, yeah, I did. I just don't remember it.
I swear to God, I have notes and everything.
Yeah. And Kate whispered to Phoebe, she's like, don't let him get to you. It's fine. And then she's like, oh, thanks. And she turns back around, and then she feels like this cold metal in the back of her neck. And she's like, she comes back, she's like, what was that? And Kate's like, oh, nothing. I don't know. Did you feel something? I don't know. And she just smiles to herself.
Usually stroke your neck with their jewelry?
Yeah. Like, I don't know. My bracelet's just still here. Didn't touch you with that at all.
Oh my gosh.
And that's the end of that chapter. So they all got touched again by the things.
She's clearly not going to be a computer scientist after this. So
no.
Programming is not in her future. But, it is very Phoebe to just be like, I can try this. I can do it. She just jumps in when she comes across the...
Always willing to learn something new. Yeah.
Totally. All right. So chapter 5. So Leo orbs down from the elders into the kitchen with nothing to report as usual because those elders are just useless. And the kitchen's a disaster because the gremlin has taken up camp in the garbage disposal.
Yeah.
And the gremlin taunts him, and he slips away again. And this is always a funny scene. You just picture Leo in his little flannels, getting all wet and slippery, wrestling around with this gremlin.
I know.
And the food scraps. Oh, and then poor Piper. So she's crying at the TV. Oh, because the lady missed out on her game show prize. I can really feel you. I mean,
She's like
she's not gonna get it. The showcase showdown.
I know. She did that stuff for her son so bad. she took a risk in it. She lost everything.
Is this a sign? Don't take risks. Okay, so then Piper, and then Leo asks about the gremlin, and she's like, oh, who, Gilbert? I've been feeding him. I just figured I'll keep him happy. It's her new little pet. It's like, this is why I pictured him as like a fat baby. Like Piper just adopts him and starts just like feeding him food scraps.
It's such a cute name.
Cheaper than getting the garbage disposal fixed. You'd think they could just turn it on. Oh yeah, they can't kill him, or or more would come. Which would also be gross. You'd have okay. Oh, yeah. Gremlin guts everywhere. So then it's not the Charmed One style. So Leo orbs to the attic to check on Phoebe. And Phoebe, again, is forgotten why she's supposed to be looking at the book. So she pulls out a baby sweater out of the trunk, only to wonder where it came from moments later. You're like, why are you going through baby clothes? They want to dress Gilbert in outfits.
This is where it gets to the point where Phoebe is Dory. I'm just like, this is hysterical.
Oh, yeah, totally. She's like, what? Who are you again?
All that short-term memory.
Yeah, that's rough. Leo takes Phoebe downstairs and is growing impatient with the sisters. He's like, what is wrong with you, dingbats? He asks Phoebe to levitate, and she only gets a few inches off the ground. So even lower than before, yes. So, and then Paige comes home early from work because her boss sent her home sick because she can't stay awake. Mm-hmm. And good thing she didn't break Grandma's bowl.
Thank goodness.
So tired. We assume it's safe. So Leo had Pepper and Paige test their powers, freeze the TV, slow motion. It's like not quite frozen. Blow up the plant and a few wilted leaves. That would be really antithetical. I mean, that's so like Piper would be so annoyed. She'd be like, "Are you kidding me? I tried to blow this up and I wilted some leaves." Like,
yeah. My power does not back a punch anymore. Great.
No, that's so not Piper. Orbed remote, and and then this is where she orbs the remote, but not only is there a delay, but the buttons are displaced. So now the molecules aren't reconfiguring properly.
It's such an interesting way, to showcase these powers. I appreciated it so much.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's a classic, like in the manor scene where they're all just kind of chilling out and then recognizing something magical is going on, Love it. Let's see. Leo thinks they all came in contact with something, not the gremlin, more than once. Because he's like, yeah, it's not the gremlin. Can't be.
Yeah.
Phoebe uses her laptop to substitute her memory. So now Phoebe starts taking notes on her computer to try to remember stuff. And,
she has like answers to a list of questions, and they're organized for easy reference, and which is smart, I suppose.
If she remembers to use it, yes, very
right.
smart. And then Paige finds what seems to be a warning in the Book of Shadows. I'll read this in a creepy voice. And should the chosen three of evil be awakened, the champions of virtue must defend the light of ages past or be forsaken, as the warriors of darkness were before them. That's also very awkward.
Yes.
Some awkward rhyming there. Yeah, but it was probably another language,
Yes, that's true. It just translated. Mm-hmm. And it's almost exactly to the same one I read on the back of the book. I think it's only a little bit different. It says, instead of, in the back of the book, it says Trinity of Evil, and here it says Chosen Three of Evil.
The Chosen Three.
Yeah.
Kind of like the chosen ones, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only difference, but...
Yeah. I thought it was the same, so I wouldn't have noticed that if you hadn't pointed out. And then Leo's like, that sounds sketch. I better go check with the elders again. And he orbs out. It's such a great way to transition a scene, too. Just Leo orbs out.
Yep, exactly. Ta-da! Chapter 6. So Kevin, Kate, and Karen, the 3 Ks, meet at an apartment. Mm-hmm. The power of 3 blonde Ks. There we go.
Yes.
And we learn they are dark warriors of the Dorchacht from 3,000 years ago.
That sounds like Klingon. Dorchacht.
So they were like these dark warriors, and they reincarnated it into...
They were like frozen in time or suspended in time for a while, and then they were born like 26 years prior into new babies.
Yeah, right. Yes, like that's what it was.
They went from being like these, Xena warriors, and then all of a sudden they were like little babies again being raised in like
yes,
middle class America.
Exactly. So now they're officially human. They don't have access to the powers they once had, but the powers are dormant in those artifacts. Cool. And then the Dark Warriors must touch the sisters once more for the battle to begin. So there's like this ancient 2,000-year-old battle that was never really completed, and they are on the verge of losing it 3,000 years ago. And so there's like this loophole that they came through, and now they're trying to have a rematch with the sisters.
Yeah, there's some other random person that they kind of just mentioned that like zapped them into the future to press pause on the battle, basically,
right,
and kind of slip through the cracks of karma. Slip through karma cracks.
I like it. So, and apparently the sisters are descendants of a powerful line of good witches called the Solagath. So I was like, oh. So, and this is way before Melinda, so Melinda wasn't the start of it. But I'm glad they did address that in the book.
Well, and if you think about it, Melinda would have had to have gotten her powers somewhere. Like if these are ancient primal forces, they probably would have just been passed down the line and maybe kind of like got watered out. And then some people had powers and were probably locked up for being crazy. And then like other people didn't. And then Melinda was like the start of like the war in witches and like the charmed line, the accumulation of all those generations of power.
Yeah. So I'm glad. And then they did address that, and they did kind of explain that. So I'm like, okay, I can buy this. I can get behind this.
We won't burn this one. And at least it's like it's not appropriating another culture in the sense of like we could believe that they could be descended from some, Gaelic, Celtic roots. That's a very witchy thing that white witches like me will, attach to as somebody, the Irish diaspora are everywhere. So that's believable.
And so the artifacts that had the powers in it, their etchings turn red the more power they absorb. So, like, I guess they're only halfway full right now because they absorbed half of the sisters' powers. I said this. 30 centuries ago, they went up against them and lost. Now they want revenge. Okay, so at the Manor, after a Chinese dinner, they all ordered Chinese because they were hungry. Gilbert came out of the drain for leftovers. he's like, I'm ready for my food, thank you.
He's like their new pet dog.
Totally. Phoebe finds a receipt for the coffee shop that she went to, 2 days ago now, maybe yesterday, I don't remember. But the one she went to with Kate, and she deduces that the loss of memory started around that time.
Yeah, she doesn't remember having coffee or going with someone.
Mm-hmm.
That would creep me out. I'd be like, who the hell did I have coffee with?
Mm-hmm. Right. So, but she has her receipts. That's why it's good to save receipts. They can help you track yourself.
In case you've been bewitched.
Mm-hmm. The 3 Ks, Kevin, Kate, and Karen, made a plan to like have touch each of them one more time, because if they touch them one more time, then they'll have 75% of all their magic, and because they still have 25%, they can still fight them. If they took all their magic, then they would...
Then they'd be innocent.
They'd be innocent.
Mm-hmm. So they have to have some magic to fight. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So they're playing by the rules of whatever that they're playing by.
They're skirting the rules. Yeah. They're finding the loopholes.
Yes. So, but because Piper wasn't at the club where they're playing, because Karen planned to touch Piper again with her flute, she's getting all mad. She's like, I demand immediate payment, and I refuse to play after anymore if Piper doesn't show up. And so
I demand to speak to the manager.
Exactly. Such a Karen. Like, okay, Karen.
Such a Karen. Which is why I was surprised she wasn't the leader of the 3, because she definitely had that, like, I'm in charge vibe.
I know. I totally thought she was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did too.
And then Paige went to take care of things for Piper, but was stopped at the... Oh, yeah, because so after Karen called and getting upset, Paige is going to be like, it's fine, I'll go pay her the money, whatever, we'll take care of it. So as she goes out to P3, She's stopped at the door by Kevin.
Which is so sketchy. It's like, first he shows up at her work, now he shows up at her home. Stalker.
Really? Ugh. Kevin, what are you doing here? And then he touched her with his cane, and Paige fell over and collapsed.
Yeah, like if they hadn't figured it out before, you'd think that would be the telltale sign. Like,
oh, it is. Piper noticed right away.
Piper's like, "What did you do?
Yeah.
You touched her with your cane. Stop poking her with your stick."
Oh, typical man.
Yeah, keep it in the pants.
So yeah, he touches her with his cane, and she falls to the floor, very much like her Snow White spell when she ate the apple.
Yes, we love a sleeping Paige. She's so pretty.
Yes, so pretty. But Piper noticed she noticed the cane. And she notices the familiarity of the marking. She's like, "Oh, that looks like the flute." Huh. So she's getting keen on something. Yes. Now Piper catches Paige as she falls, and she asks Kevin to leave. She's like, "Okay, we got stuff." You know.
Yeah. You better go now.
Yeah, she's having a bad day, so thanks for nothing.
Like, and then he just like leaves, as opposed to like, "Oh my god, this woman just fainted.
Yeah,
what can I do?"
And he leaves the door open too. He just leaves with everything.
See ya.
Piper and Phoebe both carry Paige to the couch because Phoebe comes in. So they grab her arms and legs, and they start carrying her to the couch. But then Kate appears in the doorway because the door is still open. They're like, "Oh, what is she doing here now?" And then Piper noticed the similar blonde looks of Kevin and Karen. She's like, "Oh, they're all blonde. They look alike." That's interesting
funny though, too, because it's not like they were actually siblings in their human bodies, because they were all born to different families and only found each other like 2 years before or something.
Yeah, right.
Like when their memories of being a Dorchacht started to come back or whatever.
Like, it makes it sound like you have like a loogie in your throat or something, like yeah. And then Kate drops her notebook in front of Phoebe because she is like, "I didn't see you in class today. I took some notes for you. Here's some," and she drops the notebook, and as they go to pick up the thing, she touches Phoebe with her bracelet again, and it triggers a vision in Phoebe because she has that zone out like like that gasp look, and Piper sees that. She's like, "Oh, Phoebe's just had a vision. I know she is." Yeah, Kate leaves Piper super suspicious. You need to go, and she notices the signs of Phoebe's vision, so she's like, "Okay, Phoebe, what happened in your vision?" And Phoebe does not remember even having a vision. She just had it. She has no recollection of the vision. She's like, "What?"
Oh, no.
So
we love a little absent-minded Phoebe, like when she had the grandma's ring and she's,
gosh.
in the Bewitched episode, and she's just a little...
Yeah.
She's so cute.
If this was an episode, Alyssa Milano would have killed it. It would have been so hilarious.
She would have nailed it. She'd been so funny.
So I had a good time imagining it and just laughing away. And then Phoebe asks who the girl sleeping on the couch is. She's like, "Who's that?"
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah, no recollection of Paige whatsoever. The last thing she remembers is Cole being tricked by the Brotherhood of the Thorn and becoming a banshee. So she doesn't remember anything since before Prue died.
Yeah, so when was the banshee episode?
Season 3, episode 21, the episode right before the finale.
Okay. Right before that. Oh my goodness. So
and
don't you think that would bring up the whole, like, where's Prue thing again?
It does.
Like, emotional and...
Yeah. They kind of skim over it in the book, but they say, like, there was a quiet, sensitive moment when Piper had to explain Prue's death to her again. I'm like, oh.
That's so heartbreaking.
That's not something you can brush over, though. I'm just like...
No. Yeah, I didn't even remember it was in there because I was like, wait a second, wouldn't that be like, a gut punch right away? Yeah. But they always have to figure out a way to bring up Prue in all of these books because we need to have that moment where we get a chance to like grieve her a little bit more. They're always trying to draw those parallels between her and Paige too, like all the things that they were similar even though they never met.
Until the comic books. But that would have been awful. I can't imagine having to tell Phoebe that.
And it would have been so hard for Piper too, just to have to go through that, and then Phoebe's reaction to it.
So then they wake Paige up, and Piper is a blubbery mess. She's just crying. The fact that she'd go over Prue again probably didn't help that.
Right, yeah, that would make sense.
And then Piper gets another call from P3, her assistant, her name is Dixie, or the manager at P3 at the time is Dixie, and she keeps calling Piper, and she's like, "Oh, Karen is being a Karen again," and she's making demands because Piper isn't there.
Now they're putting the pieces together.
They put the pieces together. They know that she wants to get Piper. All the dots are connected. So they are going to go in kind of with a plan. And this is funny. Of all the things that Phoebe can't remember, she does remember a paper she wrote in high school about the Tuatha De Danann, who had a harp that manipulated emotions. And she thinks Yeah, something so specific and so detailed from high
So
school.
her like long-term memory is still intact, or even
Yes.
better, maybe. But
Right.
also Tuatha was that evil witch who
It
came out of the
was.
rock with the serpent or
It
whatever.
is.
My
And it,
wand. Where's my wand?
Tuatha, very much. I do have some stuff about that at the end, but yeah, Tuatha did not. I guess they used the Celtic because it's an Irish history thing,
Celtic
and they
flair.
probably they
So
used that because she was a redhead. They probably used her as that name. So interesting. In the paper, there was a harp that manipulated emotions, and she thinks Karen's music does the same.
yeah, they're like Piper's never this much of a blubbering mess. It's not that time of the month. Something's happening.
Yeah.
There's some forces at work.
Yeah, so first she was super happy and peppy and giggling all the time. Now she's crying all the time. So she's like, oh, yeah.
Two things Piper never does all the time.
No, Leo orbs in and he explains that's what it's called, rules of engagement for magical feuds. He got this information from the elders. And the Solagath and Dorchacht were ancient clans that coexisted on Earth until the Dorchacht decided to challenge the Solagath for magical supremacy in the mortal realm 3,000 years ago.
The Solagath were your ancestors, Leo tells them. We go back that far? Piper was stunned. Melinda Warren wasn't the beginning then? Phoebe grinned, pleased that she had remembered a significant part of family history.
Melinda was the beginning of the charm cycle. So the Solagath won, and their descendants have lived among humans using magic to do good ever since. If they had lost, they could have chosen between ascending to a higher plane of benevolent existence or becoming mortal. But the Dorchacht lost, so...
Since they were empowered by evil, they should have forfeited human form and been banished into the underworld. That was the portent of the poem you found in the Book of Shadows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
apparently
they
some of them survived. But they don't know why. So basically, as usual, the powers that be are in the dark.
Dorchacht are still around and want a rematch, and they surmise the powers are being stored in the artifacts. Good. Before Leo orbs the group to P3, Paige gets spit on by Gilbert.
Poor Paige. She has a few run-ins with Gilbert.
He does. And there he is. He's giving me that 1985 Gremlin with Stitch's personality. It's like, I love it. I love it so much.
Yes. Just voracious and a pest and all up in your business. All right. A little comic relief for this dark time in their lives.
Yes.
Okay. Chapter 7. So they get to P3 and they hide out. And they decide to call in and make sure that Dixie, P3 assistant, gets everyone out of the club before they come in, except Karen, because they don't want any innocents to get in the way. They're always concerned about the innocents. So then she tells her to not even bother cleaning up and just get the heck out of there. Then they wake up Paige, who's sleeping again, and they gear down for a showdown with Karen. Karen thinks they can't hurt her without breaking the rules. She is technically human because all their powers stored in their artifacts, so they don't actually have any of their powers yet.
Right.
Karen says their chief sorcerer, Shanark, had this plan in motion as a failsafe. And so Tavra, or I always kind of think like Farv, like it's Torv, but it's Tavra. And then this one is kind of funny. It's either Secan or maybe Chicken.
Chikan.
Chikan. I always think Chicken. And then Chitara were their real names. So I always thought of like Chitara from Thundercats, which is so too old for you, but but
I know Thundercats, but it was a little old before my time. Yeah.
Yes, I was running around pretending to be Chitara at one point, but anyway. So Tavra, Chikan, and Chitara are their real names. At midnight the next day, they will automatically be transported to the Valley of Ages to face off. So the 3 Dorchacht people will have to face off the descendants of the Solagath, which are the Charmed Ones. And if the Charmed Ones lose, their powers will disappear forever, and humanity will succumb to evil.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. Just another day in the life of a Charmed One.
I thought it was funny, and I didn't write it down, but in that scene in P3, Paige orbits a candle at some point, and it arrives in her hand like a clump of melted wax.
Which is so funny because, of course, you're picturing the first time she ever orbed a big fat candle, and then just imagining that scene with it being like, "Oh, I burned myself!" Like,
oh my gosh,
did not work out. But still, a very useful skill and very destructive manner. I didn't understand why they didn't just orb the weapons or the the flute or whatever. It would have like broken apart, but I guess they'd be worried about destroying their powers instead of releasing their powers.
Right. And I do think they mentioned that briefly too. I think they say something about that, like you can't just break them like that. So they have to get the powers out before
It
they
won't just
destroy
go
them.
off into the ether.
Mm-hmm.
They'll get sucked into the void instead of, probably because of the ancient code of combat or whatever. Because
Right.
other times when their powers have gone awry, they've just landed in other random humans or on the
True.
street.
True.
Or just
Yeah.
strolling down the street like a brambleweed.
Thinking of 7-Eleven, ordinary witches.
Love it.
Yeah. So chapter 8, flashback scene. So Kevin sat on a bench and remembered the last moments of his life 3,000 years ago. Flashback.
Flashback.
He was Tovra in the form of a falcon. They had powers too. At their old ancient warrior ways, they had powers too.
And he could transform anything into anything.
Yes, like turn things into beastly animals or whatever most of the time. But yeah.
Yes.
So he was Tovra in the form of a falcon. So he turned himself into this falcon. He's flying after he just killed some Solagath witch.
He's not overcompensating for anything.
No, not at all. And then he hears the call of Shinnok. He's like, Tovra! And so he landed from the sky, and he turns into his human form. So, and now he's a human, but he was avoiding all the elemental powers of Chakan because she can control the elements.
I was confused by the Shinnok guy because he's like the leader and he's in charge, but then I guess he's probably not the strongest, so he sends his 3 strongest people into the future is what I'm picturing happening, because he's not really part of the book.
No, I consider him like an old, kind of like just an old mystic who like knows all the lore. He knows all the like the magic history, and he's just like he's kind of like the Splinter, I would say, like the Ninja Turtles, but he's like the evil Splinter.
He's like, I'm a bad witch.
I'm an old bad witch.
And so he must be suspended in limbo like all their other warriors, because all the duel-chocked warriors are like suspended in limbo waiting for this battle to end.
Correct. Tovra, aka Kevin, turned back to human. The battle is raging on. So another pair of Solagath witches attacked Shatara with a volcano spell that like put her in like this weird molten lava and started to entrap her. And her mind manipulation had no effect on... Yeah, so her power is like to control people's minds and read their minds. Pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, and scary, because she can take away free will and just make people her puppets.
Yeah.
And so they have to come up with a way to like that wouldn't work against the chicken girl who has power. Sorry, the chicken who has power of the the elements. She could control the lava, and so could Tavra. He could turn it into some other form. But so this just goes to show how smart the Solagath witches are.
But the 3 warriors, the Dark Warriors, escaped the heat of battle to reconvene with Shinnok, because he was calling to all 3 of them, and they all met up.
And they're like, we got stuff to do here, man. And he's like, no.
Yeah, you guys are losing, like, really bad, so I got another plan.
Yeah. I think you're going to lose, so...
So he has hidden their magic in the artifacts, and
I think it's funny that he anticipates that the staff won't age well, and so he turns it into like a fancy walking cane.
I know.
With a silver handle. It's like those don't even exist, and like where the time they live. And he's like, this will fit in better in 3,000 years.
Right. The flute and the bracelet, those will keep up. Those would be like nice little artifacts, like little remembrances. But this staff, no, not so much. That needs to be a cane.
Yes. You can't really walk around with a 4-foot stick and not get a few questions, or 6-foot pole.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And he's like, you're going to awaken, and we'll have a rematch later. Cool. So they fall into a deep sleep, knowing they will die to live again, and all of the spirits and their memories are all transferred to these orphan infants.
Which is so sad. Like, what happened to these infants? Like their own souls or personalities, or whatever. Did they they really gloss over some murky moral ground here.
Picking out some human soul,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, you have to think, was it something that was like in there with them at first, or did they just completely expel it? Was it like, the terror, the life essence, when there's 2 and 1, or very much like Isis too?
Could see himself in the mirror when his soul was being taken over by that possessor demon or whatever, and then same with Piper when her soul was being possessed and she was going to slowly die. So yeah, you got 3 dead babies on your hands there.
These 3 orphans were reunited to
living random regular human lives until like 2 years ago. They have these at age 26, so they got to have a nice happy childhood, or terrible childhood, if they grew up as orphans in the system or whatever.
Sure.
And then they all of a sudden remember who they are. My God complex is finally validated.
Remember who you are. You are my son, the one true king.
So they're reunited 2 years later, and they embark on their plan of evil. Oh, but first they have to go to the cave and find the artifacts.
Yeah. They knew exactly where it was. Yeah, this is where we stored them, and we got them now. Ha ha ha.
Chapter 9. The day of the battle begins. Piper has half her power, and Phoebe and Paige are at 25% because Piper didn't get touched again by the flute.
Right.
Oh, and then they have a nice little cute moment in the bathroom, which is classic charm. My daughter's so cute. She's like, whenever we're getting ready in the morning together, it always feels like those little charm scenes where they're always like, oh, which lipstick should I use? It's so sweet. And then let's see. So Gilbert scares Paige while she's in the shower, and Piper has a good chuckle, which is such a cute scene. You just picture Paige, like, first of all, I was worried she'd fallen asleep and like cracked her head on the tub when she screams, but no, it's just Gilbert running across her toes while she's trying to shower. And I think they mentioned that she's all jiggly. So you're, of course, just picturing, like, you know, she's dripping wet, like screaming her head off, wrapped up in the shower curtain.
Oh my gosh. Hysterical scene. I love these little scenes in there. They're so great.
Yeah, they throw in those little moments that make it feel like Charmed.
Mm-hmm.
And then Piper realizes that a good laugh can help counter the effects of her weepies. And Paige, you know, got a scare, so she had an adrenaline rush, so she was a little more awake than she was before. So they're trying to find, much like when they lose their muse, they're trying to find natural ways to stir up their own, you know, reserves, emotional powers. So Kevin, Kate, and Karen, the evil Ks, are eagerly awaiting for their full powers to return. They're having the dastardly, you know, drumming their fingertips together, planning how they're going to
twisting their mustaches. Yes.
yes. How are they going to take over the world? And how they'll be the full force when the Sologoth will be weakened. So at the moment of battle, they're going to get their powers back and then be really hard to confront because the charmed ones have been weakened. So the girls and Leo are contemplating their bleak chances of winning, which is also a very charmed moment where they're all like, they're down on their luck. There's nothing in the book. Phoebe is like glued to her computer notes, trying to keep a thought in her head before it disappears, and trying to stay in the loop, and also constantly like not even remembering who Paige is, but
right.
like that must really be tough. Like she's like, who's this? I guess she's not a redhead at the time, but you know, she's like, who's this girl? So, but again, it's a very underdog moment. And then Phoebe kind of rallies the troops by saying that underdogs always win. And I feel like this is a very classic Phoebe, like, you know, bolstering the energy of just like finding that positive outlook, even when all hope is lost. And then Paige realizes that, yes, they need to stop thinking about what they've lost and focus on what they still have. A very pep talky moment among the family. They still have a fighting chance when they regain their confidence. We're the charmed ones, and we always fight back.
Chapter 10. With anticipation.
Announcer voice.
The sisters and Leo await the battle. Paige worries about Stanley from the shelter and if his application will be approved. It's like, yeah, now you're worried about this.
We have to throw him in. We haven't talked about any of that stuff for a while, but she's got a spare moment. So she's like, oh yeah, I have a day job. Crap.
Yeah, she's like, I sent in the application. I wonder if what's taking them so long to get back to me. Like, I hope he gets in. But just then, the girls are sucked into the portal to the Valley of Ages, one by one. Because, at midnight that day, it was bound to happen. So they're just waiting for midnight to come. And then it does, and they get sucked into the portal. And they see an eerie-looking battleground with a greenish glow and purple sky. So it's kind of like this, like, I've pictured, like, evil Limbo from Enter the Demon.
Yes.
Yeah, what it looked like with all those
That's
swirling.
What I was picturing too.
Yeah.
Before Chicken gets Rooster his powers. Oh no, this is the Zen Master.
Yeah, that's 12 Angry
Zen.
Zen.
Master's beautiful garden.
Yeah. The three dark warriors emerged in their old appearances and garb. So the leather and fur.
Gnarly. They got some teeth issues. They're a little grungy.
Yeah.
They got bones tied in their hair and snake skins. I really appreciated the description of Chicken having the like snake skins woven in her hair. I was like, yeah, I could hang out with you.
It's like, we're no longer the blonde bombshells, we are the crudes. So, and they have Stanley with him, the old man that she just mentioned. How convenient was that?
That's why they had to bring him up again.
Yep, just in case you forgot. Poor old man was with them, completely terrified. He's like seemingly held hostage. So, see, but it was at this point when I saw Stanley there, I'm like, oh, you know what? I bet you he's Shinnark. He was like undercover.
I wondered that too, if he was gonna like transform at the last minute and be like, ah ha ha.
I totally thought that, but no, didn't happen. But you know,
Stanley stays sweet.
Yes,
with a name like Stanley. Oh, my name will live on in infamy.
that was his name.
That was Stanley. That's why they already had a Stanley they cared about, so they didn't have room in their brain for another one.
Yeah. Love it. All right. The day the magic died. Chicken, angered. Chicken!
I feel like that's how she acted too, like a crazed chicken. She was very volatile, like the elements. She was very
Chase my lightning, suckers! Yeah. So she's angered. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna attack you. But so Piper froze, and with her weakened powers, it just kind of slowed down the scene. So previously, you kind of see that something like froze for a split second and then went back to normal, and now it's like slowing down time.
I always kind of think about like, how would they do this on TV? And I was like, oh yeah, that would be really cool.
Well, I think of like the Quicksilver moment from the X-Men movies. You know, every time they have Quicksilver, the whole scene is like moving slow,
faster than everything.
Yeah.
Give it to us.
We want the power.
We want the power.
Give us the power.
All right, so Chicken's freaking out.
You know, she slowed down her attack. Paige grabs Stanley and brings him to safely and hides him behind a boulder.
And like, stay here. And he's like, I'm having the worst dream. She's like, yeah, you are.
Okay, so Chicken is Kate, and
Tovra
Tovra is Kevin.
And then
Shtara is
Shatara.
Okay, so cool. So Shatara / Karen invaded. Oh, this is where it gets crazy. She invaded Paige's and Phoebe's minds. First, she invades Paige's mind and like reads her thoughts, but then Paige looks at Phoebe and then automatically goes to her mind too. It's like a connection. That's crazy. And then she learns, she's like, they found nothing in the Book of Shadows to defeat us, so we will totally win.
Well, there's nothing in Phoebe's mind, because Phoebe's just drawing a blank every 5 seconds.
Right.
You're not going to get much help there anyway.
Exactly.
Phoebe's like, who's this girl next to me? And where the hell's Peru every 5 seconds?
So Chicken summoned a storm, and then Paige kept racking her brain about the little clues she had. Because this is Paige. Paige is a smart girl. Often in the show, she's the one to put 2 and 2 together. She like really figures things out. So
to the point where I think she would have figured it out faster than she does in this sequence in the story. But, you know, they have to like spell it out for us. And then she's also like got a lot of stress happening, like with protecting Stanley and stuff's happening all around her.
You know, she's exhausted,
So it takes her a minute, but
so she's putting together the clues. She's cross-referencing the passage in the Book of Shadows, the one that we read. Before they left, they found like a scroll. They were looking for ancient scrolls, and she's like cross-referencing something she found on there about reversal in ancient feuds. She's like, so this is how it's always like a reversal. How do we do a reversal? Tovra, Kevin turned a tree into a snake, a giant snake.
Yeah, and it like comes at Stanley like giant mouth, like about to chomp him like Jurassic Park style.
Made out of a tree, comes out to eat Stanley. And Paige realizes that Stanley is the light of ages past from the poem, and it represents all innocence to defend. It's a lot of pressure to put on Stanley as like representing the whole fate of humanity.
So if you die, we're screwed. All right, chapter 11. Paige is having this dawning realization while this battle is still raging around them. Paige called for the snake. But Piper immediately slow-moed it.
So Paige first calls for Snake, and Piper's like, Paige, no, your orbs are too slow. It's not going to get him in time. So that's when Piper tries to slow it down.
Oh, yeah. So to keep it from eating Stanley, which saves Stanley.
Yes.
And then the orb is delayed. And so when the snake rematerializes, it's wood again. And it comes as splinters of wood, which also makes me think like, she'd have like this like needles of wood like showering down on her in this moment.
Right. Ooh.
And then Phoebe, I love how Phoebe always comes to with her, her martial arts. She's like, I don't know what's going on, but I know I can fight. Those look like the bad guys. She picks up a branch and she cracks Chicken over the head with it, which is great.
Yes.
Chicken. Tovra hurls his staff at Paige, which I feel like I'm like, why would he do that?
Stupid.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like really smart. That's like got all your power. And Piper freezes it just enough for Paige to grab. And so in this moment, I think is when Paige is like putting it all together. So Paige like flips it around and says the spell to transfer the magic. And then she has her powers back and she's able to orb Tovra away. So now, does she suck out Tovra's powers while she gets her powers back?
Exactly. So what happens is their powers are released and then Tovra or the blonde powers are sucked into it instead. So,
yeah, and they're like, haha, sucker.
Yeah.
So then Piper's like, Phoebe, get the bracelet. And Phoebe doesn't really know what's going on, but she trusts Piper. So she puts her martial arts training to use and she's got Chicken pinned. And then I love how Piper's like, can you like get your head down there and still have her pin? Like, can you get yourself in position and still pin her? And Phoebe's like, sure, no problem. And she's like, got her forearm in the girl's neck. And she's totally like, I own you, Chicken.
Oh, yeah.
So Piper helps hold her down, and then Piper and Phoebe hold the bracelet to her head, and they say the transference spell, and then Phoebe gets her powers back too.
Yes.
So then Chikan is powerless, just like Tovra, and they're super pissed about it. So Shatara begins to play her flute, making Piper feel sick, and she's like, oh, shit. She played the flute to do her spell, and they were like, oh no, she has to play her flute after touching her, and it might not work. But Phoebe, who, despite not being able to keep a thought in her head, had a moment of inspiration the night before and had written a spell that she'd written down in her notes. So she had her notes with her. She left her laptop behind, but she had some handwritten notes that she'd stashed into her pocket. And so she was like, oh, will this spell to make a flute play itself help? And they were like, sweet, that's what we need. Score. So they tackle Shatara. Again, they kind of, for being like these powerful, door-chalked warriors, decked out in like leathers and thongs and fur, they're able to like take them down pretty quick. But also that was part of their arrogance, like underestimating, the blowouts and the high heels and the crop tops. It's like, hey, we may look fabulous, but we can still kick some ass.
Exactly.
So they
Charmed
take
recipe for success.
Yeah. And look good doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So they tackle Shatara, they drain her powers, and they say the spell to restore Piper's. And I like how they mention that like the flute like sounds like some weird like record played in reverse, like some satanic like evil melody played in dissonant sounds.
Yeah.
But anyway, it sounds like the devil's music. So let's see. Then Piper blows up the 3 artifacts. And so again, it must be because of the rules of engagement that blowing up the artifacts, their powers are destroyed or sent into the underworld, as opposed to just being released into the ethers. So this is where I picture like when Cole was in that, in that no man's land where there's like,
oh yeah, the wasteland.
The wasteland and the powers are raining down. That's what I picture happened to their powers.
Very much, yeah, I totally get that.
Ghostly figures of the Door-Chalked clan appear, which is super creepy, but I love it. Just picturing this whole group.
The army of
all the gods have already gone on and lived out their destinies, but these guys have been suspended in time, and they're just like watching the last 5 minutes of the game, and they're like, oh! And Shinnark, before them, aghast at their defeat. How could you I set this up so perfectly, you fools? So magic disappeared, and they grew old, and they swept away. The return portal opens up and just swallows them up, and the charmed ones, and they grab Stanley, and they're out of there, and they're like, saved the day.
Back at the manor, Leo and Cole greet the sisters. So Cole came back from his fishing trip, and Stanley was super cute. He's like, "Oh, I want to remember this forever." Like, I remember the bad
Yeah,
guys,
like
whatever.
I really liked the part where they blew up,
Yeah,
or whatever.
right.
It's like
Yeah,
we liked that part too. He's such a
yeah.
like a little kid. He's like the old man little kid.
So he fell asleep, and they let him keep his memories because they just assumed that he'll think it was a dream, and old
No one will
age,
believe him anyway.
right? So yeah, and they reveal that the Dorchok are finally in the underworld where they belong.
Yeah, and Cole says something like, "Yeah, nobody really wanted them to win anyway. They
Right.
were all kind of pissed that they would like cheated death." And it was like, way to like take the wind out of our sails, Cole. Like,
Right.
oh, even the bad guys were rooting for you guys to win. And then there's like some moment where Phoebe's like, "Oh, Cole could have really saved us some time with his knowledge about this battle." And it's like, oh, we gotta just throw in a little misogyny at the end there, like, oh, Cole could have saved the day a long time ago.
Sure, right. Yeah, so they say the Dorchok end up finally in the underworld, and Leo says, so was Gilbert. They had to do a shit off the water, and he left. And that's another thing, because Cole did it, because he came home, Cole was like all dirty from his fishing trip and wanted to take a shower.
Yeah.
And he got mad that the Gremlin was there, so he's like, let's shut off the water. I know how to get rid of him.
Yeah, like, I need to wash the fish and brimstone off of me. So.
Yeah, and then it ends with they learn that Stanley has been accepted into his Hawthorne Hill home. So yay, he gets to be happy.
He's safe and have a home and a bed and 3 meals a day.
Yes, the end. Final thoughts about the book.
Oh, I mean, I enjoyed it. It was fun. Like I said, I felt like it was kind of like there wasn't a lot of mystery for the reader. You kind of put the pieces together, but then it got interesting with the history because it's always fun when you get a little bit of another culture's mythology and stuff. Yeah. The only thing that I felt like was kind of a continuity error was at one point they mention Phoebe like twirling her hair as if it was like a characteristic trait, and I feel like no, that's when that demon was pretending to be Phoebe and she like did the hair twirly thing all the time. So Phoebe was like, oh, what did she do? She twirled her hair a lot, so.
Kaya the shapeshifter, yeah. None of the sisters really took priority in this book, so this truly was like a book about the power of 3 as a unit, which I liked.
Yeah, and they all had their pieces of the puzzle to solving the solution. It wasn't just one of them, but it relied on their wits, not just their magic. So it really showed how, it's their bond as sisters and their...
It was so nice. And yeah, all of these books, they are a little bit juvenile in a sense in the grand scale of things. But I think this is my favorite book so far that I've read.
Nice.
It was super funny and entertaining, and everything.
Really cute moments.
Yeah, everything seemed to make sense more or less. I thought, the threat had a very real, dangerous, and insidious feel. Yeah, I love the unique and entertaining variants of the powers because this would have been something cool to see in the show. How they didn't just lose them; they were just diminished, and to see how that would cooperate and see how they would manage with them would have been.
And
cool
how
to
that
see.
changed over time. Like at first it was like a quick freeze, and then it was a slow mo, or first it was like a delayed orb, and then it was like, taking it to its parts,
So to see that, to see them gradually diminish like that, it's cool and refreshing. So I really liked a lot of elements in this book.
Yeah, definitely.
Something that's interesting to note: Paige makes a remark that is in direct response to the author's narration, and it was strange. It was like breaking fourth wall.
Oh, I noticed that at one point where I was like,
I have it.
Oh, good.
I marked it. So it says okay, Dorchok's Warriors of Darkness would be formidable opponents even if the Charmed Ones hadn't had all their abilities. And then it goes to, which we don't, Paige muttered. I'm like, what? So it's like
that's her thought, like they were trying to like that's what she was thinking about or something. But yeah, it is kind of like,
That's weird. I have something about Tuatha De Danann. I wrote a little blurb about what they were.
The actual culture?
Yeah, they were a race of godlike people gifted with supernatural powers who invaded and ruled Ireland over 4,000 years ago.
I feel like the theme of this book is kind of like bad things can happen to good people, and it's not necessarily their fault. Like sometimes you can just be out living your life, trying to be a good person, and shit happens. And I think it's a really good message for anyone who's ever been victimized, because we have a very blame the victim kind of culture. And it's like, no, it's not your it's not your fault that this crap happened to you. This is forces set in motion 3,000 years ago, but now you just got to deal with it and just don't give up and keep fighting. And you don't necessarily need magical powers if you have a brain in your head, and I feel like they definitely use that like outsmarting them, because they kind of did that whole briar patch thing too, where they're like, oh yeah, don't read my thoughts because, or please read my thoughts. That'd be great, and I don't know. They kind of just outwitted them before they overpowered them.
Well, that was beautiful. I like that. Thank you.
I love how their Charmed is always so empowering. It's always a good message of like, overcoming odds.
Next is put that in my canonical hat.
Canonical.
Which we did talk about stuff that were canon throughout. So if there's anything we didn't mention.
So at one point, I have it marked page 171. It's something like if Leo is right, Paige would have the control of weather power back again someday that she had when she was the evil enchantress. And I was like, I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember if Leo ever saying anything like that. That was her evil power. So it didn't seem like her orbing would eventually grow into weather control.
That is a little strange, but they did mention the evil enchantress more than once in this book. Pepper taunts Karen and the P3 Club about, Paige was an evil enchantress, so she has no problems hurting a human.
Oh, yeah. It's like thinking that would trick her. Like,
And then Piper also had memory loss. Kind of like that in Valley of the Dolls when Paige casts a spell on her memory. She's like, hey, who am I? Who are you?
We also see super chipper Piper in that episode, too.
We do.
She's like neurotically chipper. It's super funny.
Phoebe wrote that the portal to Valley of Ages is similar to the portal to Halloween 1670, which is accurate. That's what she wrote in her notes. And 1670 is actually the year they went to because that's the year that Melinda Warren was born. So I'm like, all right, you go, book.
Nice. Yeah, way to get the continuity. There's definitely a couple of the books that aren't as careful. So I always appreciate that.
Yeah.
If you're going to write fan fiction, you got to know the fans.
And then I do have a little bit about Gremlins. Paige in the Book of Shadows from the show says that they are mischievous, tiny green creatures who meddle with machinery. Although impish and seemingly harmless, their tinkering can cause potential danger. They are invisible to humans, but witches and other magical beings can see them. When sighted, they flee at a great speed, leaving behind only a fading green blur and the damage they have wrought. In folklore, and Leo mentioned this a little bit in the book about how gremlins were like in World War II planes and stuff like that. And gremlin had their origins during the World Wars, and they're said to cause havoc on aircrafts and stuff. So the reason why they're like that, because they hate technology, is because it said that gremlins showed humanity how to create machinery, leading humanity to an invention boom and industrial revolution. And the gremlins were responsible for that, but the humans...
It's all the gremlins' fault.
Yeah, the humans didn't show any gratitude to them or show them any recognition, so they were mad and they felt betrayed by the humans because they were reasons why humans got so smart about machinery and stuff, and gremlins are just like forgotten, and so that's why they go ahead and try to sabotage all of the things.
That is so funny. I did not know that. But, I mean, it explains why they loved the junkyard Paige left them in.
And then one final thing is they mentioned Emma from Black as Coal, which was the one that had the fiancé.
Was killed by Balthazar.
Yeah, that one.
And she actually strips Cole of his Balthazar demonic powers.
Exactly, yeah. They mentioned her in the very beginning of the book. It's so minor. They said that her fiancé was actually her husband in the novel instead of her fiancé.
Oh, God. What a mistake.
And then they said that Cole is not the new source yet. So, but I still think that's debatable.
Well, it's like they don't think he's the new source, but if this takes place between the episodes you said, then
he should be.
Because if the Hollow has already been destroyed, then it's the source is in him. Yeah.
Okay, so now we're finally in our rhyme time where we do some spells. Woo!
Should we try a spell?
Why not? Let's try a spell.
Rhyme time! Miscellaneous entities, substances, incantations, and cures. Unknown magics on mystic tides that breached the darkened gate. Lost bits and beans, send and hide, now reveal and locate.
It's an okay spell. It's
okay. The beat might be a little off, but
I'm not moved by it. The next one is to contain Dorchok magic. Dark magics of the Dorchok clan, all powers that were yours return, course through the blood, flow from the hand into these lifeless vessels burn. Strong words, but another kind of odd spell. It's not, it doesn't make it memorable.
To transfer magic. All right, forgive me, anyone who speaks Gaelic. Okay, Gushin Todach or Gushin Todach. It kind of reminds me of like, when they're playing with their shillelaghs.
Yes. Slante East Tanta.
Kundaili Bocharach.
Yes. Love it. I can't really say anything bad or good about that spell because it's just there. Next one is to summon a storm. Dark forces of the air and night empowered this ancient enemy to fell 3,000 years agone this hour. So that was one that Chicken said. These spells are just not fun to say. They're awkward.
Yeah, they don't really flow.
So I love this book, but the spells not so much.
To activate the flute and return Piper's powers, a power of 3 spell. Laughing then and crying now, undo this mystic music curse. The Sologoth command the flute, play Piper's powers in reverse.
That's the best one we had all day.
I think it was good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it fits, it does the job, it has a good flow. I'll commend that one.
Yeah, I'll take it.
So best baddie rankings is next.
Best baddie.
I'm not going through them all until the end, but I'm going to tell you where I put our 3Ks. They are now my number 1, actually.
Ooh. Well, they did have the power of all this time and space and a whole clan behind them.
Yeah, the whole clan, they do have pretty powerful powers. They just didn't apply them as effectively as they could. And
they got arrogant.
But they did put up a fight, and the whole process of coming into their lives and pretending to be friends, and it was a really long haul for them, and they did well for the most part.
Very
until the end.
insidious.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like a foe that you can see coming at you that looks scary is like easier to handle than someone that you thought was a friend turned enemy. Like that's a very human thing we could all relate to that hurts. So I could definitely see that being very scary.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing is usually where we do a Grimoire games or 10 things, but you came up with the activity for this episode.
So we met in a Charmed fan group. I think geeking over all of our Charmed paraphernalia. But everyone's always like, I don't know, talking about their relationships and who they should be with, and did they end up with the right guys and stuff like that. And I always thought it'd be super fun to think of who would they be with if they were members of the LGBTQIA community, like who would end up flirting with who and stuff like that. And I actually posted about it in the group, and we had a fun little. I was nervous people would like freak out about it, but we actually had a fun little conversation about it with some good ideas coming through.
This brings up a point I wanted to make before we start, because I used to, and I still do get frustrated sometimes when shows or movies I like receive a widespread gay affiliation, which is stupid. I don't know why. It shouldn't matter to me, because I want to, I want to be like supportive of that. But I think I want my interest to kind of have a universal appeal. Maybe it just comes down to is like I don't like assumptions being made about me based on the shows I'm passionate about.
Right. Just because, like not all queers love Madonna. I mean,
right.
They do, but don't.
So it's like and I think, and maybe it's just because I'm a bisexual and I like it's my desire to blur lines. Like I said, blur lines.
I hear you. Yeah, so, as a bi person, you're always kind of feeling erased in the community anyway. So
right.
that is tricky. So, or being forced to choose.
Exactly. So yeah. So and for some reason, Charmed has a huge following with gay men, and I don't, and maybe that's women and gay men, and you can tell from the guests that came on the pod so far, it's pretty. The numbers don't lie. So.
Well, and I feel like maybe part of that is because of all of the like female empowerment, is something that like the gay community can embrace too, because it's like we're fighting against the traditional values of patriarchy and misogyny to show that like women are powerful, gay men are powerful, bi people exist. We're real, we're here, Mm-hmm. There's definitely some like solidarity, I think, in those.
Yeah, and there's thematic elements.
Yeah,
and the fact that they had to kind of hide their magic is kind of an allegory for gay people always feel like they have to hide for a long time.
Yeah.
So there's some moments in there. That being said, the gay representation in Charmed wasn't the greatest.
No, the representation in general could have been better, and as with the majority of TV and movies, it seems. But Yeah, it's good to point that out.
Yeah.
They did have that lesbian couple with the pirates, though. I really appreciated them because, Prue was always the one that was like, oh, she's your partner. Or you're like, oh, she's your partner. And Prue just like nods, like, oh, yes. Oh, wait, no, Prue wasn't there. Sorry. Those were the Paige years. Whoops. But yeah, you know what I mean? The cops didn't want to take it seriously because they thought it was just a lover's quarrel.
Right.
But again, it's just like kind of tokenism as opposed to like having a full on.
Yeah, there's only 3 known LGBT people in the whole Charmed series, from what I remember. So
Who are the other one?
You got the pirate couple, and then there was a very minor character that worked at the Bay Mirror.
Oh yeah, and he's like upset about drinking out of his coffee cup or whatever, and Phoebe's like, "Isn't it obvious? He likes you."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's like the whole like the little crush guy. His name was Phil. I think it was Phil. And then they don't mention this in the show, but Tyler the fire starter. In the comics, he's known to be a gay guy, and he's dating somebody in the comics. So
yeah, nice. Yeah.
So let's see what your thoughts are. I didn't pick one for everybody, but I do have some people in mind that I thought would be fun. So you want to go over yours?
Well, let's take them a character at a time. So
Okay.
Let's start with Prue. So at first, I kind of had a hard time picturing Prue with anyone. Not that I can't see her like being bi or gay or lesbian, but mostly just because there weren't a lot of options, especially for her seasons. There weren't a lot of other characters that like were as strong, and she was so strong. I kind of jokingly put her with Brooke because they have that canine connection. Brooke turned into a wolf and she turned into a dog, but that was mostly like a joke.
I like that.
But so if Prue was Miss Hellfire for real, like Prue as Miss Hellfire, I could see her dating Katya, the demon who steals Pandora's box. Because they have that same kind of like energy.
Yeah. And her abs were insane.
Yeah. Her abs. Yeah, that actress is Michelle Hurd. But anyway, so then I thought, well, the one person I could actually see Prue as Prue, like dating or like having a serious relationship with, would be An Ling, the Zen Master's daughter who becomes the Zen Master. Because they're so about like their family connection and protecting their family's honor and stuff like that. So I could see them, hitting it off.
Oh my gosh! See, I was only thinking about people in her seasons, but I'm like, oh, see that.
I racked my brain. I was like, who would Prue go for?
I like that one. That she might be a little too sweet.
That's true.
But but I can see them having a little fling, a little bit of bonding.
So who did you pick? Did you pick anyone for Prue?
I do have someone for Prue. You might laugh at this, but I put Hannah Webster.
Oh my gosh! That's so funny.
I could totally. That'd be so like she has that little darkness to her, that little edge, but they're like they're always like at odds with each other, but totally. the sex would be so good, like
the side snide marks that they make. Yes, they would have some they'd have some raw angry sex.
Yeah. Lee Ellen Baker is the actress, and she's so great. I really loved her on the show, and I think it would have been funny to see her and Prue together.
Oh my god, that would have been hilarious. I would have liked that. Honestly, just any of these would have been entertaining. Just make it a little more exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, did you have anybody for Piper?
So I couldn't really think of anybody for Piper. I tried a little bit, but
honestly, I get really straight vibes from Piper too.
Yeah.
Like I had a hard time picking one for Piper. So I picked, if Piper were the Valkyrie, if she was still a Valkyrie, I think she would hook up with Freya, the leader of the Valkyries. Because they have that leadership, protecting their group people. She's got her Valkyries to protect. Piper's got her Charmed ones to protect.
And I would feel like the Valkyries are all bisexual anyway. That's in my headcanon. That's how it works.
Oh, for sure. How about Phoebe? Did you get anybody? Phoebe?
I do have someone for Phoebe.
Okay.
It's like hands down for me is Kira the Seer, Charisma Carpenter Seer.
100%. 100%. Kira the Seer.
Yes.
For sure.
That's the one.
They totally had that Love. There was maybe a little queer baiting going on in that episode.
Maybe,
like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. While you're there, why don't you work on that knot a little bit on my neck?
Mm-hmm.
As much as
Massaging, they're always touching
compliments,
hands, you know.
even the gentle touching.
Yeah.
I also just love Charisma Carpenter. She's just such a bombshell, and she's so fun to watch.
Yeah.
So Paige, I could totally see Paige being bisexual and dating lots of people. She's totally got that vibe. I like that. So I put Paige with Ava Nicolai, the Shivani High Priestess.
Aha. Yes.
The one who was, because they both had that initially denying their power thing and then embracing it like with a vengeance and being like, strong leaders in their communities. Yeah. Who would you put for Paige?
I put the Vampire Queen.
Yes, they would. Yeah, I could totally see that. Yeah,
and because vampires are another one.
Because they're like good Paige or evil Paige. I could put them with a few. At least they'd have some, fun times, if not a strong relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any for Daryl, Leo, or Cole?
I mean, okay.
I could kind of put them all together. Honestly.
Right. That's what I said. That's what mine are like. Because Leo and Daryl are the All Hallows Eve tension, that sexual tension in that episode is
so good.
Have you ever watched the bloopers for that?
No, I should.
Okay. I mentioned this in one of my earlier podcast episodes, but I think it was episode 3. Talk about like our 10 WTF moments. But in All Hallows Eve and the bloopers, Leo heals Daryl and he's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Happy Halloween." And then and then Melissa come by. She's like, "Are you gonna get a kiss?"
Yes.
So
that is totally what should have happened.
Yeah. So Leo and Daryl have that chemistry. I can also see Leo and Dan. Do you know that?
Yes, I could totally see Leo and Dan. If they weren't fighting over Piper, they would be like so hot and horny for each other.
Yeah.
Because Dan's got the hair that Leo's really into.
Mm-hmm. And they bond over the baseball. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the whole baseball thing. It's like, if it weren't for the fact they were fighting over Piper, for sure.
Right.
So I could also see Leo with Jason Dean. Now, here's why. Because Leo is just a big softie who wants to be spoiled, and Jason Dean wants to spoil someone. So I could see them hitting it off because Leo would just sit there and let Jason take care of him.
Aw. Yeah, because Whitelers don't have any money coming in anyway, really. So you
need a sugar daddy. And he's always got like Piper cooking for him and stuff. Like, come on, Leo. Okay, so I could also see Cole with either Daryl or Leo because they both have their moments. Like the one in Black is Cole where Daryl, and I know Daryl and Cole seems like a far-fetched.
No, I had them
both
too.
like Oh, good. So where they're like both venting about like, you think
I have no ID, no job.
Yeah, totally. And then they're like, "You good? You good?" It was like, oh yeah, they're good.
I can't even go to the grocery store without getting arrested. It just sucks. And then
yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
they're so cute. They're so funny.
Yeah, I would love them together.
But then I was thinking like, so Cole as a demon, like as Balthazar, like would he be into anybody? And my daughter was like, no, because that's the whole point. He has no emotions. He's not half human. And I was like, okay, so Cole as Balthazar, he'd be maybe into the wrestling with the demons guys. Because they just get all wrestly together.
Right. Cool. That was fun.
We kind of had the same ones.
Yeah.
That makes me feel good. I knew how to pick them.
Yeah. So the final thing, I know we went on so long, but it's fine. We had a good time.
Definitely.
Final thing is your tips for future Whitelers.
I was out being a force of good in the universe.
What's the moral of the story?
This idea that like you just can't give up and you have to trust yourself. Like even if you are weakened or can't trust maybe everything that's going on around you or your own thoughts, you have to have that belief in yourself, like deep down that you can overcome something. And that's about it.
My moral it ties into what you said. It's very similar in a certain way. It ties into the word of the day, bringing it back to word of the day, Sisu. And Sisu means having courage. It's a mindset that lets people see beyond their present limitations, going against the odds, reaching above your observed capacities and still having courage in the face of adversity type of thing. So I think that's have more Sisu in your life.
Yeah, I love that. That is a great theme and message to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Sisu.
Yeah. So where can the people find you?
Oh, well, you can find me at katzaccard.com. That's KATZACCARD. I'm on Amazon. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram at katzaccard. And in most Charmed venues. Anywhere we're talking Charmed, I will try to be there.
All right. Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I had so much fun.
Yeah, thank you. We'll have you back sometime and we'll do more.
For sure. I love it.
And you can find this podcast at Words of the Witches on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And find me on my other podcast, Hanging with the Halliwells. Yeah. Your destiny still awaits.